So Richard, can you tell us just a little bit about how you got engaged with the Wang YMCA here in Chinatown and why it's been an important volunteer engagement amidst lots of your leadership involvement here in Chinatown and beyond?
Sure. In college, I learned swimming, and it was at the Y.
Wow.
At that time, I was living in Newton, and so I learned how to swim as an adult, as a young adult. And then my next exposure is in my capacity as a school teacher at the Josiah Quincy Upper School. We have a partnership with the Wang YMCA where the staff brings our children here and provide the physical education for our children from grades 6 through 10. And our 11th and 12th graders are able to come after school. And so seeing the impact of the Wang Y on my students led me to the place where when I was invited to step up to be a board member, I said, well, of course, I can't turn it down. You know, the Wang Y in particular has done so much for my students that I feel like to pay it forward, you know, to pay back and to provide a service. So I'm really helping the Wang Y to help my students, you know. So everything positive that happens in terms of development work or fundraising directly benefits my students. So the Wang Y has just been tremendous for my school community, my families, and certainly for myself, you know. So.
And when you think about, you know, what it's providing your students as a school leader, and then your role as an advisory board co-chair, and what it means to this neighborhood and the place of this neighborhood in the history of Boston, newcomers to Boston, generations of Chinese Americans and Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, like you've just been more steeped in the history of this place. How do you think about the Y's place kind of in the history of Boston and the generations of folks who have come here?
Yeah, America has changed a lot. I think it's a real credit to the Y that there is a Wang YMCA. It's recognizing that that organizations are not generic. It's not a McDonald's franchise, right? Yes, there is the Y brand and the quality, you know, assurance, but it definitely has the characteristic and the culture of the community, in this case being Chinatown. And that the Y has branches in different communities that reflect the culture and the people of the community. So it's owned by the community. You know, I grew up, I came to America when I was 8 years old. And that was in the era of the melting pot. So immigrants were welcome, as long as you learn to assimilate. Blend in. And so what that meant was I grew up feeling very ashamed about my culture. Like I didn't want to speak, I didn't want people to know I spoke Chinese. I didn't want to emphasize my Chinese identity. I didn't want to hang out with other Chinese kids because I didn't want to be thought of as, well, I don't want to be American. So to be American was not to be with your own people. To be American was to be invisible with respect to your cultural identity. So that you're a generic American, you know, speaking standard English, So it was, you know, speak English. Like if I spoke Chinese in the classroom, it would not be accepted, So that was the bad old days. And today, to think that we actually celebrate culture, many of the programs here are multilingual, and we have the Asian American Pacific Islander Month, to acknowledge that that Asian culture is not meant to be invisible, that it's you can be American with your distinctive cultural background. In fact, that's what makes America strong.
That's the trick, right? Is how do we set a table that's big enough for all, but also make it one table when it wants to be? That's the trick. And having leaders who have had the journey and the experiences that you have, that's how you do that. People who have been on that journey can reflect and say, I want to make this feel different than it did when I was 8. That's how you're going to do that powerfully. And I hope all our staff can reflect and try to do that aspirationally. All our volunteer leaders, I want to try to do that. And that's how our Y community tries to do that every day. So just with great appreciation and love and admiration, I appreciate you, and thanks.
Thank you very much.